What's up, gamers, and welcome back to another PAX Day video. We've got breaking news as it relates to the release window for this upcoming game from the devs, because they have confirmed that the next step in its evolution will be the early access period of time. As to when that is, well, we're going to dive into what they've had to say and we're going to talk about it. We also have some news from them as well regarding signage that is coming into the game. This is something that they shared with us about their feedback overall, and they shared an image of the work in progress. So I would speculate that this is going to be something that's also included as a part of early access. So let's talk all about that here in this video. Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name's Brian. If you happen to be new around here, if you guys have hit that subscribe button, if you like PAX Day, welcome to the channel. I do appreciate you guys taking a chance here on my content, and that's all I wanted to say about that. Let's continue on with what they have to say. Hello Paxians. First of all, we'd like to thank everyone who participated in the Wilderness Alpha and took the time to provide us with your invaluable feedback. Overcoming the challenges and inviting more than 100,000 participants was a huge achievement. They then go on to talk about some of the things that are still yet remaining, and this is where our release window is coming from. Best of all, there is a big part of the game that we have yet to talk about in detail: the social fabric and the economy. The economy is the number one thing I'm the most curious about, because it's going to be one of the most key moments, key components, but also the most controversial, because they've already talked about, you know what, we might have a sub token on the table, and that doesn't necessarily make everybody happy, but it is an interesting discussion to have as this game evolves. The cool thing is that we do know that early access will not have a subscription tied to that period of time. Anyhow, all that being said, they said that they are still not fully ready to unveil this part, but they promise it will make PAX Day deeper and richer. This is another cornerstone of the game, and thus it has to be ready. Being that they are saying they're not fully ready to reveal this part, I think that we're going to see some hints trickle out over June. I think we're going to be seeing early access release sometime in July. That gives them plenty of time to do that. Now, it could slip out of July and go into August, and if it does, I'll find some way to make it up to you guys. But I would set your focus in on July. Plus, it also gets the game enough distance away from the insane amount of games, both MMOs that are established and other releases like the Elden Ring expansion that are coming out as well. And that, I think, is a good, healthy thing, because hype is an important fact. And if people aren't excited about playing the early access because they're playing other games because they're excited about those games, that's, I think, going to be something that's going to set them back. So keep your calendars locked to July, and as things change and as the developers speak about this, I'll be sure to give you guys updated analysis when it comes down to it. If you guys don't know, I'm a software dev. I'm actually working on my own game as well, so I can hopefully provide enough insight as to the public sayings and what is going on behind the scenes. Anyhow, combat updates, they want to kind of talk about for a little bit. We're also going to talk about PvP, like I said. So they start, what we're aiming for in combat is a system that feels like a modern action-oriented MMO combat system. That is excellent in my mind. That's what I think a lot of people are kind of hungry for, but you could still enjoy tab targeting. That's really going to be up to you. Anyway, which balances the between player skill and RPG progression. The gear that you have will matter a lot. The preparation that you do and how you specialize in your role in a party rating and a dungeon system, this will also matter to you and to your group, but so will your skill and your knowledge of the game. I like skill-based. I also like RPGs. I think No Rest for the Wicked is just crushing it in that regards. I really hope that PAX Day can also do something similar. The combat systems in Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 were almost 100% different under the hood. Those who played in both probably noticed that the whole system, in terms of gear progression, stats, and movement, was very different and much improved. However, we fully agree that we still have a long way to go in the combat system to state that it feels great. Of note, We've already fixed some performance issues that contributed to the floaty feeling of the combat in Alpha 2 and have tuned the movement system so that melee attacks lock you in place for a shorter duration. Additionally, we've rebalanced some of the gear and enemies, including adjusted the shield batch, which was very overpowered. Now, you guys had a lot to say about the combat system. Katie writes, yeah, the combat still needs work from the magic images, and the fireball needs a better look for ranged counter, and all you need to do is block now for magic. You have all you have to do is block now for magic. You have to dodge it. Zach says combat looks like shite. Zeno Angel follows it up and says alpha footage. Reason I include Zeno's reply here is one of Copium. Meaning, I see this a lot within development. Like, yes, improvements are going to be made, but if you don't like how it looks and feels, unless they decide to do something like Throne of Liberty and completely overhaul to a degree their system, I wouldn't expect too many changes. I do think it's going to feel better. It's going to look better. That's a natural progression of the work, but I wouldn't also discount it as just, oh, it's just alpha footage, because we see that kind of copium come in from time to time, and ultimately it ends up making people more frustrated because they have expectations that all of a sudden they're going to have a completely different combat system. But I think you're seeing the foundation of that system. It's going to be expanded upon, and it does, because that's a big part of the feedback that people have had. Now, regarding PvP, they said, let's start with an apologies to who wanted to participate in PvP but couldn't due to the short duration of the test. Many of you still did to get to play, though, and we got a lot of great feedback from them. Full loot was considered extremely hardcore, and we somewhat agree. The test was intended to gauge how far we can go with the system, and we've said before, we like PvP in Pax Dei to be very consequential, and at this point, full loot rights are a part of the design of the open PvP areas. Related to this, constricting PvP to only Lioness region was considered too challenging, as the travel time was very long for many of you. Be reassured, we'll be expanding PvP to include some options outside of Lioness. Now, I'm very curious to see how this plays out, because we know full loot PvP doesn't always translate into large player populations, and Sandbox MMOs need large player populations. But I hope that they can really crush it, because there is a market for that. There are players hungry like that. Just like Baltol says, the combat has evolved a lot already, and yes, full loot is awesome. And so the PvP community, I think, deserves a win. The question is how do they strike that healthy balance so that players who do not want a PvP will find the game rewarding and satisfying? More on that now. What we get out of PvP systems is pretty challenging, they continue. We know many of you absolutely love PvP, but many of you don't like it and will not want to play a game that forces you to PvP. We want Pax Dei to be a game that both types of players can love, and what this means in practice is that PvP will continue to be optional in the future. We will avoid making content that players cannot experience without participating in PvP. I know a lot of people were frustrated at Destiny, as they would always kind of force you into things that maybe you didn't like to do, and I don't think that's worked out for them. It works out in the short term. I don't think it works out in the long term, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, they continue. We agree that the starting experience in crafting is currently overwhelming and a bit confusing, and one of their priorities regarding combat crafting changes is to make balances to address part of the game that is specifically, in addition to basically adding some tutorial steps in the most essential related features. We also have a long list of suggestions of quality of life, inventory management, pinning recipes. That's one thing that I want to be able to do, just to see what I'm actually going after and where I'm at in my progress. Stack sizes and labeling containers, and we already showed that off at the start of this video. Trading between players, recipe durations, and so on, and we're committed to improving all of this, and the feedback that we received is very helpful at prioritizing this work. As with crafting, we're parsing a long list of suggestions for improving the usability of building systems and new content. A notable part of the system we plan to improve on soon is the permissions, and the first step will be to fine-tune them for clans with more member levels and better management containers, crafting stations, and the building part. A notable bug we already addressed in our internal build as related to the system used to prevent building on roads. In some locations, the system was overridden by another one, and it took no longer to be possible to block access to areas on the road, and the network is intended to guarantee access to. So then they go on to talk about a long list of other things and issues that they featured and they've already fixed, meaning that this was an alpha, and then the early access is, really close, actually, if you consider all things considered. With early access just around the corner, it's going to be really cool to see how that game is received and how it contains its community, because you're probably just going to get the hardest core of players in there. And as long as you've got the player population, I think it's going to be an interesting summer, to say the least. Guys, that's the information. That's the news. Hopefully you got something good out of this video. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time today. And hopefully I will see you in the next PAX Day or other MMO video here on the channel. But for Ginger Prime loves MMOs, my name is Brian. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.